I think it's disingenuous to say that Putin would be the only one to benefit from the multipolarity when it would really benefit all of these developing nations that want to use Bridge to trade a basket of local currencies, which would only strengthen their own economy. What it is to me is they have, I think, really, this will reinforce and crystallize their motivation to break free from the West.
Bear in mind that everything we deal in is credit. I mean, even under a gold standard, people never used gold in transactions. It was always credit. The difference was that credit's value was tied to gold. And so you had a lot more stability than we have when it is not tied.
BRICS Plus is actively de-dollarizing its financial flows from above average levels, as seen through declining shares of the US dollar in their cross-border bank claims, international debt securities, and broader external debt. At the same time, BRICS Plus has a much smaller global presence in those areas, limiting the impact of its regional de-dollarization on the global role of the US dollar. For President Vladimir Putin, the summit is not merely a stage for international dialogue. It represents a crucial opportunity to reaffirm Russia's standing on the world stage. A prominent figure in the financial services industry, AndySchectman, argues that multipolar financial systems, rather than solely benefiting Russia, could empower developing nations by boosting local currency trade. Simultaneously, Alasdair Macleod, head of research at Goldmoney, states that tying credit to gold offers more stability than the current system, where credit lacks such backing. From a technical standpoint, Andy mentions a recent Washington meeting with the BIS, IMF, and World Bank, suggesting rising Western unease over BRICS initiatives. He points to BIS head Agustin Karsten's refusal to support BRICS due to sanctions, which he sees as hypocritical given BRICS's recent gains. Project Bridge was a key talking point at the recent BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia, with the bloc touting its ability to enable the transfer of wholesale CBDCs among member nations, aiding their de-dollarization efforts. The comments from Karstens and the withdrawal of the BIS from Project Bridge come as BRICS has been pushing the concept of de-dollarization and expanding its member ranks. With the recent additions to BRICS membership, nearly half of the members of Project Bridge are also involved in the bloc. Meanwhile, Andy emphasizes BRICS's focus on cooperation, including BRICS Clear, a swift alternative that could allow independent trade outside Western oversight. According to seasoned analyst James Rickards, this system might enable periodic gold settlements, effectively creating a gold-backed trade standard. Now, we present the clips of AndySchectman and Alasdair Macleod's insights from his recent interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates.
When you get the State Department telling us that alternatives to the Swiss system and undermining the dollar's role threaten democracy, you start to wonder, is this does this have a little bit of arm twisting involved in it? And I think it's disingenuous to say that Putin would be the only one to benefit from the multipolarity when it would really benefit all of these developing nations that want to use Bridge to trade a basket of local currencies. It's very interesting that you had a meeting last week in Washington where the BIS was there with the IMF and the World Bank and all the Western policymakers. I think they got a little concerned about what was happening. And you get Augustus Karstens, who kind of looks like the kid from Willy Wonka, Augustus, and he says, and it's really gross. I mean, I'm sorry, I find it to be distasteful because they've spent all this time together. And then at the 12th hour, he comes out and says, we cannot directly support any project for the BRICS because we cannot operate with countries that are subject to sanctions. I want to be very clear about that. And Agatha Demarius, a senior policy fellow at the European Council of Foreign Relations. In the long run, there is no doubt that the mechanisms like BRICS Bridge would be useful for China, Russia, or others to hide sensitive transactions from Western authorities. The underlying technology is a tool to circumvent sanctions and potentially undermine the dollar's dominance in the global financial system. The hubris I find to be distasteful. And at the same time, you had the BRICS come out completely reiterating their commitment to enhancing financial cooperation and cross-border payment solutions in a cooperative manner. I think as Steve had mentioned, you had an overt, almost in a marketing sense, drive to show that Modi and Xi Jinping are addressing their border issues. You had Saudi Arabia and Iran announce joint naval exercises. They're showing that cooperation is something that they're interested in. So, there's something called BRICS Clear that James Rickards talks a lot about. I would suggest people read that article where he basically says that this will be a ledger for these BRICS nations to trade back and forth with one another, free from the Western intermediation or the SWIFT system, and to settle monthly or quarterly on a net basis, not on a gross, where if Russia trades, oil with for India for technology, those two things will offset, and then once a month or once a quarter, they will settle through the commercial banks that are participating and take the excess, the proceeds, whether it be due to a trade imbalance or whether it be I just have too much in the way of ruble, I don't want any, and buy gold with it. He basically is saying it is a de facto gold standard, just without the pegging. What it is to me is they have, I think, really, this will reinforce and crystallize their motivation to break free from the West. And it won't happen overnight. But this is just a very underhanded way of doing things where he says, I want to be very clear. Well, where were you a year ago? Where were you 2 years ago? And you bring it up now, it's transparent, it's gross, and there's probably a lot more to it that we don't understand, but I don't think it bodes well for the trustworthiness, which is something that is already lacking.
In the event of a collapse in fiat currency, market expert Alasdair Macleod proposes that gold be used for major assets and silver for daily expenses. He references Germany's 1920s hyperinflation, where gold maintained value, allowing property purchases with just a few ounces. As per Alasdair, when credit's value is tied to gold, it provides greater stability compared to the current system. Since gold has a low correlation with the US dollar and other currencies, it is an ideal inflation and currency depreciation hedge. When product prices rise, inflation rears its head, and your US dollar's purchasing power decreases. In contrast, a $1,000 gold bar will rise in value and thus have more purchasing power than a $1,000 US bill. Regarding government control, he suggests that while setting a maximum price on gold or banning gold ownership might be possible, it would likely backfire, driving up black market demand and prices. Let's get back to the interview.
When it comes to deploying gold, I think basically she is right, because if, let us say, fiat currencies collapse in their purchasing power, then you don't sell your gold for currency so much, but what you would do is you would use gold to purchase assets. You would probably use silver to purchase day-to-day, sort of, if you like, the things we need to live on, like food and all the rest of it. Something from a book by an Austrian author of renown called Stefan Zweig, who recounted that in the German inflation in 1922-23, you could have bought a property, a six-bedroomed house, swanky part of Berlin, for $100. Now, I don't know how many zillions of paper marks that was. I mean, I'm sure it was huge barrow loads of paper currency. But the point is that was the equivalent of just under 5 ounces of gold at the time, because the exchange rate, the gold exchange rate with the dollar was $20.67 to the ounce. So, I mean, I think she is right in the sense that you would use your gold to, the effect of a collapse of the currency is completely to destroy the value of assets, and even property values will go down. Bear in mind that everything we deal in is credit. I mean, even under a gold standard, people never used gold in transactions. It was always credit. The difference was that credit's value was tied to gold. And so you had a lot more stability than we have when it is not tied. What they could do is go back onto a working gold standard. But I really think we're a long way away from that. Perhaps a better question might be, is it likely that governments will ban gold ownership? I mean, it would be a very stupid thing to do, but I wouldn't rule it out, because governments tend to do things which are politically demanded rather than economically demanded. But I do think that if, let us say, we had a repeat of the 1933 confiscation episode, then I think that would just drive the price of gold far higher in the paper currency that is doing it. I mean, it would just alert everybody to what's going on. And I do remember when we had suddenly in this country, I think it was back in the 60s, we were banned from acquiring sovereigns, which is a coin of the realm, for goodness sake. And what then happened was that, you know, as far as the dealers in sovereigns are concerned, the price went bid only. In other words, there was no stock on offer. And if you actually wanted to get some sovereigns, it was extremely difficult. I mean, it just went underground like that. It was Gresham's law. You know, the bad money was driving out the good completely. So I think that's probably something which she might just bear in mind.
As de-dollarization accelerates, the BRICS nations continue efforts to establish a new reserve currency backed by a basket of their respective currencies. Central banks globally are on a gold buying spree, a strategic move to lessen dependence on the US dollar, also known as de-dollarization. How do you think the global financial landscape will evolve as more nations join BRICS and alternative systems like Bridge and BRICS Clear gain traction? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the next video.